My name is Kimberly Haven, and I am the Executive Director of Reproductive Justice Inside. Reproductive Justice Inside has gone through a couple of evolutions in the last couple of years. We are concerned with the timely and quality of the sexual reproductive health care of women and girls that are incarcerated in Maryland's state prison and in all of our jails. And that covers the entire gamut of someone's reproductive life. Through Reproductive Justice Inside, we were the fifth state to pass legislation that mandated that menstrual hygiene products be freely, readily, and in a quantity sufficient to meet the needs of an individual available in Maryland. And then we were the first state to develop a model pregnancy policy manual. One of the things that we learned early on was that our state institutions and our county institutions had no policies in place for dealing with an individual who was pregnant. They kind of dealt with it on a case-by-case basis. And so that kind of leads to poor maternal health outcomes. It leads to poor prenatal health care. I get this question about what inspired me to get into this work a lot. I think the easiest way to express it is because of what I went through, the things that I saw. I've been incarcerated myself, and we have this kind of jokey thing that we say in this space about how I did it on the installment plan, meaning I went back a couple of times. But the first time that I went to prison, I had an aha moment. Let's steal from Oprah, because everybody loves to steal from Oprah. And I saw 3 generations of one family behind the fence. Now, women are great about creating community. We create communities all of the time, and the prison environment is just as conducive to creating community. But the one day that I saw 3 legitimate generations of one family behind the fence was so disturbing to my soul that when I left, I had the option of returning to my life and being a soccer mom, or fighting what I knew was wrong. And I've been a fighter my whole life, standing up for other people, right is right, that whole thing. And so that was sort of where my advocacy was born. Unless you know somebody who is dealing with these reproductive justice and access issues in a carceral system, you don't think about it. You just sort of assume that all of this is taken care of, all of this is handled, all of this is provided. The reality is it's not. One of the issues that is overlooked is we still incarcerate pregnant individuals, and they still give birth. And 2 years ago, I guess it was the year before COVID, I saw something that said Breastfeeding Awareness Month was in August. And I got all excited about that. And then the reality hit me that women who are incarcerated aren't given that same opportunity. It's a right to parent with dignity. And so I thought about, well, let's not do breast awareness, let's do breastfeeding awareness. And let's tell people that there are live births, and individuals, because we know from the research, had they been given the support, had they been given the equipment, had they been given the education to do it, they would have chosen to do it. And so we looked at all of those barriers. By the end of August, first part of September, my office looked like a breast pump depot. I had breast pumps, I had tubes, I had bottles, I had nipple cream, I had all of that. And so I'm excited. I'm thinking this is like amazing. And then we realized what the problems really were. And so if somebody has a baby and they're given to their family, they're given to another caregiver, the option to be able to provide that breast milk is met with a lot of barriers. It might be grandma, it might be a sister, it might be dad, it might be whoever, who may not have in our local areas the ability to go pick up the breast milk. But in the state, that problem was even worse. So we have one state prison in Jessup. If your caregiver and your infant are in Western Maryland or Southern Maryland or the Eastern Shore, nobody's going to drive 3 hours to pick up breast milk. And I just kept thinking, well, that's something we should be able to address. And all of a sudden I said, we need boober. my entire office cracked up. What is boober? And I love telling people about boober because I love watching their reactions. And so what boober has become, and right now it's in its concept stage, boober is now a project of Reproductive Justice Inside, and we will work with institutions to make sure that they have the materials and the supplies that somebody would need to be able to express their breast milk. You know, in 2020, our work shifted, as did everybody's. We had to pivot very quickly to be able to address the issues posed by COVID on our incarcerated populations. The issue too is the department was slow, as most prisons were, as most jails were, to be able to provide appropriate PPE. If somebody were pregnant, there's no way that they could maintain 6 feet. There's no way that they could sanitize everything because everything that they get in cleaning products is so watered down. So we mounted a campaign to ensure that anybody who was pregnant could be released. Now, statutorily, sometimes that's not possible, but to the extent that we were able to get pregnant and post-pregnant individuals released from custody, even if it meant electronic monitoring in home, we were pushing for that. We were pushing to not arrest pregnant and post-pregnant individuals. Again, the footprint of COVID is still unknown. It is still something that is looming. And so we're still constantly having to pivot. While the prisons are opening up, while they are still trying to practice as much as possible safe distancing and masks, it has really been on the advocates to push for the PPE that individuals needed, the masks. We heard horror stories. You know, they only get like 2 masks a week. It's not good. When the pandemic, and this is a horrible thing to say, but the pandemic and the continuing pandemic has been both good and bad in a lot of ways. In the bad way is that it really tore through all of our correctional institutions. And that doesn't just include the incarcerated individuals, it included officers and staff. We're also concerned about their health. And so we had to pivot to try to really push for the institutions to make sure individuals had what they needed. And we've still been mounting that fight. My greatest accomplishment will be when somebody else picks up the mantle and says, okay, let's address this. What do we need to do? How do we fix this? How do we bring attention to it? That is what brings me the greatest personal satisfaction, is when I watch people have that aha moment of their own. And when I watch people say, how can I help? Women have been and continue to be correctional afterthoughts. And so all of the policies that are in place are designed for men. That doesn't work for us. And so that's been a challenge, is trying to shift their understanding of that, to shift the narrative for people who are in our communities who don't understand that 1 in 3 adults has had and has some involvement with the criminal justice system, and you don't know who we are. To look at somebody you wouldn't guess. I used to play this game, and I'd go into like a crowded movie theater, and I'd look at the first 90 people and say, you know, can I find the 30? And the answer is no, you can't. But we also want to think bad about people, and that stratification, that stigmatization is something that I work to challenge and to address and to rewrite narratives. We want to be able to think that, oh, you broke the law, you're bad, you're over there, I'm over here, I'm better than you. The problem with that is it's a false sense of security, because there, but for the grace of God, you could have 1 glass of wine too much at a book club. You could have 1 beer too much at a bull roast, and Johnny Law's sitting outside, and you get pulled over, and guess what? You're now a member of our fraternity and our sorority. It's not one you want to be a part of. But we have to feel better about ourselves. So we do that by stigmatizing and stratifying people away from us. That's a challenge. Why do I think Baltimore needs a boost right now, given everything that's going on? I think the simplest answer is what we do to, what we don't do for or with those individuals that we incarcerate, that's the harm, the trauma, and the damage that they bring back to our communities. And in Baltimore, particularly, Baltimore City, we have select zip codes where the largest number of incarcerated individuals come back to those 7 zip codes. And they're not prepared to come back, and the community is not prepared to come back. And our prison population is reflective of what our criminal policies are, which is criminalizing poverty and incarcerating at unacceptable rates Black and Brown individuals. I used to do this example of why we needed to care. And I used to build a Jenga tower, and I had it all nice and neat. And I'd say, so Jim Smith gets arrested and goes to prison, and I pop out one. And I do it a couple of times, and I know, and just to get the visual of the Jenga tower is the community. And the more you take away from that community, the less stable that community is, and the community collapses. And whether we want to realize it or not, the people that we are targeting by policing, that we are arresting and re-arresting, whether we want to admit it or not, individuals are contributing to the economy of their community. They're going to their local corner stores, they're buying diapers, they're paying their mom's BG&E bill, whatever it is. But what could we do better? What could the outcome be if we invested in these communities and the individuals had equal opportunity, equal access to opportunity and resources? We could transform Baltimore if we were willing to do it.